Hello everybody and welcome to the final Hollow Knight stream. Or at least, this is what we plan to be the final Hollow Knight stream. Thankfully, Kiwi's able to join me this time.
Yes!
All those
You have to
times where I was
stream it to me.
abandoned. Oh yeah, I do. 1 second.
I didn't abandon you on purpose. It happened because of work.
How dare work get in our way of fun, happy times playing Hollow Knight. Totally getting our ass beat. Konichi, what's up to you too, pun?
I should have been there for the path of pain. I think you needed some cute support.
Cute support? I think you're giving yourself a bit too much credit. But yeah, so this is the mostly complete lore of Hollow Knight by mossbag, and apparently it's the kind of the best video if anybody's looking for lore behind the game. There was a lot that was kind of left open-ended, and I didn't do enough research in order to figure things out, so I'm hoping that this video will be able to answer those questions for me. How do you expect to reach A-rank support if you stream together so rarely? That is true. I wouldn't jump in the way of like a mortal blow for Kiwi. That is unfortunate.
What? I would take a mortal blow for you.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's a one-sided relationship like that. Yo, what's up, Ginger?
Goodness.
Welcome.
Hello,
All right.
Ginger. I'm heartbroken. I'm shedding
Let
tears.
me know if the audio is okay. I've been testing it out, and I mean, since it's a live stream, I can't really edit it. So, yeah, let me know. Alright, without further ado, let's get right into it. What, what was that? Video contains spoilers. Oh, no worries. So you already played the game. Or at least I did.
Yeah, you don't care about me being spoiled, yeah.
If you were to ask me, what is your favorite video game ever made? I would have to say Cory in the House for the Nintendo DS. But Hollow Knight would be a close second. Hollow Knight was released on February 24th, 2017
Audio fine,
by
thank you.
Team Cherry, an indie game studio based in the mythical land of Adelaide, South Australia. Over the past 3 years, Hollow Knight has become an indie darling.
Australia.
The game has sold over 3.5 million copies. It was the opening game at ADGQ 2019. There's a Hollow Knight book, a line of plushies, t-shirts,
Aw, the grubs.
nicotine patches, nuclear warheads, and even vinyl records for all you goddamn hipsters.
A grub plushie would
Team
be
Cherry
really
had
cute.
There was this one weird depiction of a grub in one of the towers, and I need to know what that's about. I'm hoping it's in this video.
one goal when making Hollow Knight. They wanted to create a world that allowed players to get completely lost in exploration. We can see this desire in Hollow Knight's design. The levels in Hollow Knight are massive, with secrets and rewards hidden in every nook and cranny, be that powerful charms, special abilities, or the game's navigation system requires the player
whatever
to
that
look
was.
for a map, forcing
I never use any of those, actually, now I think about it.
them to make a stronger mental image of the world in their head. Christopher Larkin's score and Ari Gibson's artwork lend to this as well,
Absolutely
creating an
beautiful
atmosphere
music.
that the player won't want to leave. But there's one aspect of Hollow Knight that keeps people like me coming back: the world building. When Super Metroid launched in 1994, it stood out for its amazing sense of immersion. Now in 1994, I was busy not being alive, but I've watched enough YouTube video essays to know that this game was a big deal. In case you didn't know, Super Metroid is basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias. That's why they're called Metroidvanias.
Yep.
Now in Super Metroid, there are moments that give
Metroid
the
and
player a sense
Castlevania.
of depth. Basically the feeling that this world exists outside of Samus's interactions with it. In the room right before that diabetic crocodile thing, Samus can find the corpse of a random soldier. His inclusion here doesn't change the gameplay at all, but instead gives the player a sense of wonder about the world they are exploring. Who was this guy? Why was he here in the first place? Did he like jazz? Now, find
Okay. Well, I see mossbag is also a believer in the "do you like jazz" question. A classic, in my opinion.
dead bodies and other random garbage is pretty cool, right? Well, Hollow Knight basically does the same thing, about a dozen times.
Oh, wait! Oh! That is a...
Well, Hollow Knight
So I'm guessing this is a shot of if you decide to kill the guy who forges your sword. Because in our playthrough, I decided not to, and he just ended up going with the painter dude. Damn.
They ended up being gay.
His corpse just floats here? That's kind of morbid.
Hollow Knight basically does the same thing about a
Maybe you
dozen
can
times.
float on his corpse.
Through its world building, Hollow Knight turns Hallownest into a living kingdom. You can sense the ancient history of the land when you look at dilapidated structures or giant barred doors. Nothing feels like it was put into the game randomly. There's a reason for it all. Except those reasons aren't the easiest to uncover.
Yeah, what is this?
Hollow Knight's narrative is buried under layers of NPC dialogue, item descriptions, lore tablets, and even additional content like the Quarrel comic
I have no
and
idea.
Fangamer's Wanderer's Journal. These past 3 years have seen an insane amount of research by the Hollow Knight community to make sense of Team Cherry's...
Wait a minute. I I saw something there. Did you see that? It must be a very interesting read.
brawling world.
You have to go back?
We've even made it to the point where people are looking at the in-game signs to try
Save
and
ourselves
decipher
from YouTube.
Hallownest's logographic language. In this video, I hope to give you a long and detailed look into the world of Hollow Knight, exploring Hallownest's
Damn.
history and uncertain future. When I'm not busy making surprisingly accurate Super Smash Bros. Roster speculation videos, or insightful podcasts
Wow.
about beloved subjects like the Donkey Kong Country television series, or
Incredible.
whatever this was supposed to be, I'm usually
Wait,
making videos
he disliked
about
his own
Hollow Knight.
videos?
He's like,
And while I
yeah,
am a
was
seasoned
about to
Hollow Knight
say.
lore expert, I cannot confirm that every musing or theory presented in this video is completely correct. I highly
Jack
recommend
a
checking out the
dull boy.
lore section of the Hollow Knight wiki if you want a more neutral explanation of Hollow Knight's lore. But if you're too lazy to read, then I suggest you sit back,
Aren't we
order
all?
some Domino's pizza, or just grab a block of cheese from the fridge and enjoy the mostly complete lore of Hollow
I
Knight.
have pistachios.
It's a
and
simple
I'm
fact of
munching on
life that
them.
every human worships a god.
What do you call them?
Be
And I
that
think
technology-
everybody can hear it. What pistachio?
Classic Kiwi.
Ideologies, or in rare cases, God.
Rick and
As
Morty.
it turns out, the bugs in Hallownest pretty much operate in the same way. From the mosskin born from the dream of a giant slug, to the emo kids of the ancient civilization who literally worship the darkness, there is no shortage of things to worship in the
The
world of Hollow Knight.
darkness.
Our story begins with a creature very much worthy of worship. A creature born from the carcass
The
of a
darkness.
worm. The carcass can still be found in the
Yeah,
Kingdom's
here's the
Edge,
carcass.
and it's our only good look at what worms actually looked like. At the time Hollow Knight occurs, it is suggested there are no worms left in the world. They were incredibly long creatures that featured little to no limbs. Another more mysterious property of worms was that they had some kind of prescience or foresight. Basically, they could see the future to some capacity. It
Shulk?
isn't clear how effective this ability was. Considering how the entire race went extinct, this foresight ability must have been pretty shit.
Apparently so.
Doesn't have to be that. Maybe just like they were so big that they couldn't like keep themselves safe during a climate change or something. Doesn't mean
Or-
that they were bad at foresight, okay?
Or maybe they were like destined to die at that point and they just kind of knew it. There was just
Yeah.
no way around it, maybe? I don't know. Fate
they
is
were
a cruel
destined to
mistress.
die at a young age.
They got too depressed seeing the future to keep going. That is a very valid reason to die. I will agree.
Getting back to this particular worm carcass, it is explained that this worm traveled across the distant mountains and wastelands beyond Hallownest. Once it arrived in Hallownest, the worm died. Except not really. Inside the maw of the carcass sits a pale broken egg, out of which hatched
Yeah.
a new form of worm, a being of meager shell.
A new form?
This form of the worm is usually referred to as the Pale King.
This guy. He's the
Oh, is
guy
he
who
hard to
put all
beat?
of the buzzsaws in his palace. What is wrong with you? Oh my god.
I mean, he looks
Oh.
like a twink. Can you blame him?
You have a point there, Kiwi. But he made Path of Pain. Therefore, he should not exist.
And he's the character
never saw it
basically
coming.
responsible for everything that happens in Hollow Knight.
Not
The
until
Pale
Saturday.
King is a higher being, a type of creature that exists above all others. His body was said to shine with a radiant visage that harmed those who looked upon him. The ultimate goal of the Pale King seemed to be in line with that of other worms. A line from the cryptic Mr. Mushroom reads, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall." In other words, it's just in their nature. Dogs wag their tails, cats bury their shit, and worms bring massive amounts of bugs into their service in order to form long-standing kingdoms and civilizations. And here in a far corner of the world, the Pale King emerged from the corpse of his former
I for some
self
reason thought he was
and
going
began
to say
to build his
Farquaad.
eternal kingdom, Hallownest. There's just one slight problem. There's like people already living there. The area that would eventually become Hallownest was already filled with mantises, bees, moths, spiders, mushrooms, and bush cosplayers. Each of these groups were already operating with their own cultures and societies, and each group had a different interaction with the Pale King. One of the more receptive groups to the arrival of the Pale King were the mushrooms of the fungal wastes. These creatures were able to communicate with one another through one shared mind. The mushrooms viewed this shared mind as a strength, and they were kind of smug dickheads about it. Ultimately, the mushrooms wearily accepted the Pale King's rule, viewing his foresight as a shield to the dangers of the future. Another group living in the fungal wastes is the Mantis tribe. The Mantises have a rich cultural history reaching back to long before the birth
I
of
wonder if you can,
Hallownest.
like, in any way, shape, or form pass through this level without Mantis tribe attacking you. Or, like, being on the side of the Mantis tribe. I wonder if that's possible.
I mean,
Or
if
if it's
you,
just, like, evil, gotta attack, gotta kill. Bam.
they're warriors. I think it's within their nature to fight anybody who they don't respect. The only way that you can make them not fight you is to obviously beat their leaders, which we did. I did like that though. The mantises were cool, unlike the weird mushroom people. They were just rolling around, making weird noises and farting everywhere.
Farting.
I guess that one mushroom guy was kind of okay, though. I don't know where he was going, though, in that secret ending. He was just shot off into space.
The Mantises are a proud tribe, believing in the importance of proving one's physical strength. The Mantises are fiercely territorial, but will show respect to those who display great power.
Yes, Garfield does possess great power.
Garfield is the most powerful being ever. You should if you want to know why the Garfield SP is a good example, why he's the most powerful being ever.
I don't know where you were going with that, but okay.
I don't know either. I kind of forgot. We trailed off with my thoughts in the middle of that.
Just eat
but it's
lasagna.
fine.
You'll understand.
Yeah,
These
just
Fight Club
lasagna.
enthusiasts were led by 4 powerful
They're
Mantis
so
lords, who I guess just kind of sat around waiting
oily.
for outsiders to challenge them. The Mantis tribe had no interest in the Pale King's kingdom, but the two communities did come to a truce. In exchange for their independence from Hallownest, the Mantis tribe kept the beasts of Deepnest from invading Hallownest. Not sure why they didn't just go out the other exits from Deepnest.
True.
But whatever. I'm not an expert on border patrol.
They're kind of dumb, probably.
I don't work at ICE anymore. Let's move on to Deepnest. Now, many of the different tribes of Hallownest were kind enough to leave lore tablets behind, detailing pretty much everything we need to know about them. Unfortunately, the bugs of Deepnest didn't do that. We know that the spiders of Deepnest had a monarchy because why not? Those are always good, right? Also, within Deepnest are a separate group of spiders that immigrated to Deepnest at some point in the past. This group was known as the Weavers, and they established their own culture and history within Deepnest. They used
Weavers.
looms of silk to weave stories, spells,
It's
and
like they
shields.
overfied beavers.
I think you just have a problem with the English language, Kiwi.
I mean,
They
it's
ooified
weavers.
beavers? What the?
yeah.
What a weeb thing to say. Jesus.
What?
One thing we know for
I've
sure
seen
about
a weave
Deepnest is that they
thing.
really didn't want anything to do with Hallownest. The struggles of Deepnest-Hallownest relations would become painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another. Another section of pre-Hallownest includes Greenpath. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deepnest didn't worship any higher beings. There is this giant mushroom corpse in the fungal core, but I don't think this is a higher being. I mean, who the hell would want to worship a fat-ass mushroom? Fat-ass slugs? Now that's dope. The land of Noise Green Path was created by the higher being known as Un. Un used her great mind to dream the vegetation of Green Path into the once barren caverns. Un's followers, the Mosskin, were also born out of Un's dream, making her.
Imagine being so creative that your dreams become reality. Damn.
If my dreams
Shia.
became reality, that would be so dangerous.
Oh yeah, true. If your dreams specifically. Thank God that you're a uncreative person. Imagine if you were an artist or something.
Thank God I'm the only person here who like suffers through her dreams.
Suffers through her dreams. I feel like there's something there, Kiwi. But anyways,
her their creator. Green Path at its height was actually much larger than we see in game. At one point, Green Path stretched into both modern-day Queen's Garden and possibly Fog Canyon. Green Path's citizens showed themselves to be a fairly developed society. They built a temple at the Lake of Un in order to worship her, and they even had their own line of defense, with Moss Knights showing proficiency in combat, using nails and shells as weapons.
They were pretty good at the start of the game.
The Law of Un continued to remain in effect even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading travelers to the heart of Hallownest. Hence the name Green Path. Yeah, Team Cherry really racked their brains when naming this area, didn't they? Next, we have the bees. And while there is no lore on how these bees can turn into fucking drills, or how they can ignore all known laws of aviation, we do know how they reacted to the Pale King. These bugs decided to seal their hive off from the rest of the world, with only patrol bees being able to enter and exit the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And finally we have the Moth Tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is in the resting grounds. But the tribe might have also inhabited the...
I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, the type of bug that they are and what happens to them within the lore kind of makes sense in a way.
Crystal Peak at one point.
Yeah, I just love that they're
moths.
Now,
as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes. As for the moths in Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated. The moth race is described as being a rather pacifist group, with few ever choosing to take up a weapon. During the Pale King's reign, the moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead, displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves. Similar to the Mosskin, the Moth Tribe was born from a higher being, known as the Radiants.
Oh my god! Ah! No, PTSD! No, not the Radiants. Oh man, okay. Okay, I see. It's all coming together now.
I think I love the Radiants because they're reacted that way.
Kiwi, you're not going to love the Radiants if you've ever had to fight the Radiants.
I have not, that's why I love them.
I thought your brain was expanding, but it was just PTSD. I don't know. I guess there's that too. And I was like, oh, the connections. I still don't know the exact details, but I was like, oh my god, that's a name I recognize. So yeah, man. Let's see what the Radiance does in this story.
The Radiance is described as being a light in which the Moth Tribe basked. So she was basically a giant lamp to them. Another important aspect about the Radiance is her ties to dreams and a substance known as essence.
This is like a more chill Maxa video.
I mean, I've never watched anything by mossbag, but I very much enjoy his dry humor. It fits with my own humor. I like it a lot.
Remains of wishes and dreams, and are represented in-game by these dreamcatcher particle effects. Essence can take the form of whispering roots, as well as dream ghosts, both of which are memories taking root in the world.
Dream ghosts.
The Radiance appears to be a creature made of essence, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence. Un has green particles, the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named Grim gives off fiery red particles.
Grim is pretty sexy. But
he is pretty sexy.
I never thought that it was the same as like the essence that we would capture. I guess I missed out on that detail. And also, yeah, they're dream catchers. I just realized that. I guess imagination and dreams plays a really big part within the Hollow Knight lore.
However, the Radiance appears to be the main god when it comes to dreams, even if other gods also dabble in the dream realm. Getting back to the Moth tribe, it is their interaction with the Pale King that we need to discuss. Basically, the moths turn their backs on the Radiance completely in order to worship the new light that had appeared, the Pale King's light. So yeah, moths are assholes in this game too.
Who's that?
With her tribe forsaking her, the Radiance became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past, and a thing that's definitely not going to come up again later in this video. And so the Pale King's new kingdom was established, Hallownest. But there is one aspect of Hallownest that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, to better understand this, we're going to have to read some poetry. In Wilds Beyond, they speak your name with reverence
That's so
and
nerdy.
regret.
What the hell?
For none could tame our savage
Marie?
souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch, you taught, we changed. Base instincts were redeemed.
Oh, I was like,
A
wait,
world you
there's a
gave to
Marie
bug
in this
and
game
beast,
too.
as they had never
I remember
dreamed.
in Persona
This
4.
is from a poem titled Elegy for Hallownest, written by Motomon the Teacher. The poem appears at the beginning of every playthrough, and hints at what the Pale King and his kingdom offered. Much of the land outside of Hallownest appears to be a wasteland, where bugs survive off of instinct, without the burden of mind. Hallownest somehow taught these bugs and tamed their savagery. Basically, the Pale King changed the instincts of his subjects and granted them higher thought. To get a better picture of this, let's look at two different characters.
So bugs aren't normally like this. It's all because of the Pale King that they kind of gain their own consciousness. Or ghost in the shell, if you will.
Boone and Tuck.
So,
These adorable
Who are these guys? I never met them. What?
So nobles are smart and commoners are dumb. I see how it is.
I think it's the people who were infected that are just dead husks that are dumb.
Commoners.
Okay, whatever you say, Kiwi. But yeah, I don't remember you. I've never met you. We'll get into it later. Yeah. I'm sure by the end we'll have a greater understanding. Where is this? This looks like it's underneath the City of Tears. Hidden room in the waterways? Ah, damn. Sad, missed out on this.
Panda bug things give us a clear display of how
Panda bugs things.
While both appear to be the same species of bug, Boone is dumb as a sack of rocks, struggling to string together words, while Tuck speaks fairly clearly. The main difference between these two characters is that while Boone lives outside of Hallownest, Tuck lives beneath the city's capital. Basically, it appears as though Hallownest is a literal holy ground that
Oh, okay, I see. And the difference is just like the proximity to the city, I suppose, and like the Pale King. So they're the same bug, but since the one was just closer in proximity, he's smarter, and the other one is still kind of like a savage bug. Okay.
raises the intelligence of those who dwell within. The Pale King established a path, starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest's heart. We now know the capital city as the City of Tears, but that was likely not its original name. The rain that falls down onto the city from the blue lake above didn't begin until after the kingdom collapsed. So unless the capital was originally named by some edgy literature student, the name City of Tears wouldn't have made much sense. The king's motivation for all this appears to have been his desire to be worshipped. The citizens of Hallownest believe that the Pale King created the world, and everything in it. Shrines to the king can be found scattered throughout the kingdom, and king's idols were created and distributed to followers of the king.
Okay. Did he want to become a god? For whatever reason? For his own selfish reasons? For his own vanity? Or was there a greater purpose here? Cornifer and Grim are exceptions. They are the big brain bugs, originally, right? I'm sure that there probably are the big brain bugs out there that don't have to rely on, their proximity to the Pale King. But yeah, we'll get into that later, probably.
Despite the worship, the Pale King often kept himself hidden from his subjects, possibly to hide his blemishes. I mean,
Oh,
if you
dear.
look at the size of the real
Blemishes.
Pale King to his statue in the ancient
Oh, okay, I see. He had a complex. Oh, damn. Short king. Worms just make civilizations as a matter of course. Yeah, they... So all of this was just... It just happened. I see. I feel like the Pale King didn't give intelligence so much as society and technology. Okay. If you think of it that way, it's kind of like providing education. And so people around them became more cultured and more intelligent through that, rather than just emanating some sort of consciousness and intelligence towards the other bugs.
Yes, the
basin.
bugs have
The man is
culture.
clearly overcompensating. The Pale King's White Palace was also built underneath the city, separating him from his subjects even more so.
Yeah.
At the same time, certain powers became shunned in Halonest, though we don't know for sure if the Pale King had anything to do with this. Lifeblood is a blue liquidy substance that leaves those who drink it feeling refreshed. However, the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and those who used it were demonized as heretics.
Why? Twice in the game it is mentioned that the kingdom gives a mind. You could probably interpret it both ways. It's hard to say, yeah.
The use of
Zero,
soul
I
for
have to
combat.
restart my PC because I can't hear you and my mouse is not showing up, so my PC
Oh,
probably
no.
died.
Okay, see you in a bit then, Kiwi.
I
what's up,
can't
Ito?
hear you, so if you're saying anything, I'll join the stream.
Alright. Yeah, it's lore night today. We're trying to figure out everything in Hollow Knight and hopefully make some connections. Only 15 minutes in and I'm really learning so much.
Combat was also shunned. Soul is a sort of life force in Hollow Knight that
Zero,
animates
I'm
the
back.
bodies of living creatures.
Okay, well, hello there, Oblivion. What do you think of the Hollow Knight
Kiwi,
lore?
I'm Kiwi.
Oh. Okay.
I'm not watching the video.
Okay. Well, whatever. I'm continuing the stream.
Yeah, go ahead.
But some characters are able to control the soul of others to conjure powerful spirits. But aside from a few exceptions, no citizens of Halonest ever use this power. However, the Pale King didn't rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix, a being
Yeah.
known as the White Lady. The White Lady is a weird brute-like being that can be found in the modern-day Queen's Gardens. She is encased in a strange cocoon, and we know very little about her. With as much exposition we get for the Pale King, there is next to nothing on the White Lady. But one thing we do know is that she likes to breed. Like, a lot. The White Lady would often retreat to the Queen's Gardens, an area of land once controlled by the Mosskin. How exactly she walked around and actually went places is a lore question too deep for even
Yeah.
my expertise.
It's a
The White Lady
mystery.
is also known as a Pale Being, along with the Pale King. What exactly are Pale Beings?
being.
Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings, as being even more powerful. I know that's a little confusing, so let's try using an example. I'd say that regular higher beings are like a TP-Link Archer C7 AC1750 wireless dual-band gigabit router,
Okay.
while Pale Beings are like the Asus RT-AX88U
Ah,
AX6000
okay.
dual-band 8X gigabit
That makes so
Wi-Fi
much
router.
sense.
Under the Pale King, Halonest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution. He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used to transport passengers and goods.
Thank God
The
for
Forgotten
that.
Crossroads and the storerooms above the city
Imagine
of Tears
walking
were
everywhere.
used to store goods that traveled along these stagways. The king also ordered the
Walking is
construction of the
healthy for you.
tramways, because literally no one is safe from the threat of automation.
Imagine walking through Deep Dust and saying that that's healthy for you when you literally die.
A tram
That's
was built
healthy
between
for
the Forgotten
you.
Crossroads and the resting grounds. A second tram was built from the kingdom's edge across the ancient basin over to Deep Nest. And then a third tram was started in Deep Nest and attempted to go
failed.
further into Deep Nest. Not sure how useful that would have been to the bugs of Halonest, but whatever. The Pale King's a smart guy. I'm not gonna question him. But
Shown
anyway, the
here
Pale
being
King's super
dead.
smart plan to build a tram in Deep Nest ended up getting a few of his tram workers killed. The bugs of Deepnest rejected the Pale King's attempt to build a tram in their territory, further cementing the poor relations shared between the two groups. Aside from convenient fast travel, regular pathways were also used to cart goods around the kingdom. From this was born probably one of the most important groups in Hallownest, and perhaps even all of fiction. An elusive guild of bugs, simply known as the Menderbugs, took to maintaining the various signs scattered throughout Hallownest.
Oh,
From the journal entry of one Menderbug,
the
we
ones
can
that I
catch a glimpse
destroy all
into
the
their
time.
ancient and unknowable minds.
Dear, dear diary. Isn't
No.
life just the most beautiful thing? Fixing signs, mending posts, let them break, I say. I'm a better mender for all that repairing. I sometimes doubt there's a single bug in all of Hallownest happier than me.
Another example
That's
of
incredible.
the Pale King's expanding infrastructure is the Crystal Peak. This area is filled with crystals that grow rapidly along walls, ceilings, and even the shells of certain bugs. These crystals were considered valuable to the bugs of Hallownest, resulting in large-scale mining efforts. We don't actually see the crystals used anywhere else in Hallownest, but they are said to contain a sort of
This is an actual thing in the game? You can kill Menderbug and read this diary? I thought it was just a skit. Well, that makes it even better then.
energy. The crystals are also said to sing if you listen very carefully.
Oh, don't rickroll me. Oh my god, of course it was! I knew it was coming! I told you! God damn it! Oh.
We love getting rickrolled.
Ugh. He has a 1% chance to spawn at the signpost in the Forgotten Crossroad. Well, there's no surprise that I didn't run into him. We only went through Forgotten Crossroads a few times. And so
In terms of military, Hallownest's first line of defense
I love how
appeared
it
to be a
just
group
moves on
simply
from
known
it.
as the Five Great Knights. The members of
Aren't
this
they made out
esteemed
of poo?
coalition were Ogrim, Hagamol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma.
Wait a minute. That's the one that
Isma
gives us
these
the
nuts.
flower.
Ogrim, Hagamol, Zamir, Drya,
Yeah.
and Isma. For being so important, most of the information about these knights has been lost to time. Ogrim is the knight we know the most about, since he is one of the few knights still alive
That
during the events of
you
the
do
game.
actually fight him.
Ogrim expressed a great amount of loyalty towards the king.
He flees away immediately, so it is hard to kill him without actively trying. I see. I don't remember running into anything like that, though, so I guess he just didn't spawn for our playthrough.
And he maybe had something going on with Isma, but we really don't know.
Oh!
Hagamol was known for his sense of humor and his soft-spoken voice, but at the same
Aw.
time, he was also dummy thick. Mysterious Samir arrived in Hallownest from a serene
Let's
land,
go.
bringing with her a collection of delicate flowers. At some point, she also
I will not do that quest. I am so sorry. I am not gamer enough to bring a delicate flower all the way across the land. I already did that in Replicant, and I don't want to do that anymore.
got into a relationship
You're
with
not
a
a
mantis,
gamer, Zero. You're
but
a
not just any
weeb.
mantis,
True.
a daughter of one of the mantis lords. So yeah,
Oh.
it seems like these great knights were slaying in more ways than one. All we really know
Slaying.
about Drya is that she was fierce, caring, and wise.
And
As
also
for
dead,
Isma, she was
apparently.
described as being kind. She also appears to be some sort of weird plant life form, but there's no information on where she's from or what her powers were. The Five Great Knights play an important role in the Champion's Call, the Knotted Grove, and the Battle of the Blackworm. We have no idea what these events
Blackworm.
were or how they affected Hallownest, but they sound cool nonetheless.
Hey, Silt Song! I'm sure we'll find out, alright? Whenever that comes out. Yeah.
During Hallownest's reign, there was another strange area that seemed to exist separate from the Pale King's rule. Carved out of the corpse of an ancient bug, an area called the Colosseum
The
of
arena?
Fools was constructed, and it was a destination for warriors from outside Hallownest. The sole purpose for fighting in the Colosseum appeared to be simply for glory, with a mysterious figure known as the Lord Fool overseeing the combat. We don't know when
Pretty
the
sure he's
Colosseum was
dead.
constructed or if the Pale King was
What
involved,
makes you think that?
but one of his servants, the Pale Lurker, became a
I hated this fight so much. Dude just kept running away. It reminds me of a specific fight in Bloodborne. That fight also sucked. But I guess it wasn't as bad as that.
A champion in the Colosseum, perhaps indicating the Pale King's approval. And finally, there was the royal waterways, where the fecal excrement of the kingdom was washed out into the fungal wastes. This area saw the rise of a species of parasite-like creatures called the flukes.
I hated these guys so much. They were just weird. They made weird noises. Mikolash? Yeah. Something like that. Mikolash? Pale Lurker is super easy if you cast spells at him. Unfortunately, I was too dumb to figure that out. Aha!
The flukes spawned from the fluke marm, a giant monster with cavities in which tinier flukes live. There really isn't too much lore involved with the flukes, but I do need to point out that the fluke marm is canonically a MILF. Like,
I mean, yeah, but no. Just because something is tagged as such doesn't mean that I will always like it. Okay? There is a nuance to everything, Kiwi.
No, yes, and the mods. Whatever you say, Zero.
I just need to know the lore of Cornifer's wife. That's all I need to know.
Like, that's not even debatable. The sky is blue, 2 + 2 = 4, and we all want to fuck this thing. And so this was the...
I think you're projecting, Mossbag. I think there's a lot of projection going on here. I definitely don't have that feeling at all. What about you, Kiwi?
100% you don't, Zero. I believe in you. Oh, me, I don't want to fuck any bugs. Sorry.
I would be very concerned if you wanted to.
The kingdom of Halnest at its height. Halnest was a vast kingdom connected by a network of stagways and tram stations. The bugs of Halnest mourned their dead on the resting grounds, engaged in commerce using Geo, the de facto currency of the region, and a thriving capital located in the middle of the kingdom. The Pale King had succeeded in crafting a full-blown society, but we all know there are pitfalls to living in a society. As the suspiciously knowledgeable hunter points out in his journal, the Pale King had created a population of weak and pathetic creatures. The bugs of Halnest did not hunt for their own food, and had become complacent with their comfort. This is even more obvious with the east wing of the capital. These greedy members of Halnest's high society became complete cowards, obsessed with riches and plum from excess wealth. The bugs living in Halnest Prime looked quite different than the instinctive simpletons they once were. Their savagery had been replaced with intelligence, and through that intellect, they gave the Pale King the devotion and service he desired. And while there were a few snags along the way, they were shining times for the king and his subjects. Resting at the threshold of Halnest is a strange lore tablet, proclaiming Halnest to be the last and only civilization. It calls Halnest an eternal kingdom. This appears to have been the Pale King's goal, for Halnest to stand against a wasted world as a final beacon for civilization. And that was the Pale King's ultimate folly, to think that he could succeed where so many others had failed before. Long before the Pale Kings or the Barry Bensons of the world.
We turn over
the land of Halnest was
so they
controlled by
don't
an
ruin his kingdom.
I don't know. I feel like that was to keep people out.
I mean, once you get after a
Hints of
certain point, you
Halnest
kind of get
history
stuck.
are littered throughout the land, with the most notable examples being the soul totems and arcane eggs.
Yeah.
One sect of these ancient bugs didn't worship a god like the Pale King or any lord, but instead a dark and mysterious substance known as the Void. This ancient caste once also tried to lay claim to the entire land of Halnest, but they too failed. In his quest to conquer all of Halnest, the Pale King had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be remembered. I mentioned earlier that the Moth tribe entirely forgot about the Radiance in order to worship the Pale King, but that isn't quite true. Memories of her still lingered, and hushed whispers of faith kept the Radiance alive.
There was a cult!
At the summit of the Crystal Peak, a location known as Halnest Crown, a strange collection of glyphs can be found.
Oh,
Joining
I remember
these glyphs
this,
is a
yeah.
statue of the Radiance, presiding over the kingdom below. This old summit is the sole standing shrine left to the Radiance. This was built in order to keep the memory of the Radiance alive.
So, I guess as long as you remember, they will exist forever, essentially?
As long as you dream of her, she'll exist forever.
Wait. Does that mean that if I dream of my anime waifu, they will become real?
No.
God
There is
damn
a
it.
saying in Croatian, if you dream of something happening, it will never happen. So, I'm sorry, Zero.
She is a creature of memory and dreams. So, originally, she didn't exist, but she was made into a being from the collective memories and dreams of the moth people?
She's
The
actually kind of
Radiance's light
pretty.
began to appear in the dreams
Not
of
in a
Halnest
sexual way.
citizens. This light manifested itself in an infection that
yeah,
ravaged through the
infection.
kingdom's tunnels. Those infected would fall into a deep sleep and awaken with broken minds. Some of the lesser bugs tried to resist the Radiance's light, which only resulted in them being consumed by it even more so. Many infected bugs lost their wills and began attacking bugs that weren't infected. The infection also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies. For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in life, but now as mindless slaves. Those caught up in the infection were linked into the Radiance's hive mind, allowing her to control their bodies if needed.
She may have existed originally, but having memory and dreams as your divine portfolio kind of makes you immortal like that, so long as anyone remembers you. Okay, yeah. That makes sense. I guess in a way, as long as you're remembered, you will never die. The only true death is when you are finally forgotten, forever from this world.
As the infection spread across Halonest, many groups looked to solutions to fight off the Radiance's light. The gates to the City of Tears were closed in an attempt to keep the infection from reaching the
sorry,
So we
I'm
made the
kind of
Hollow
like,
Knight.
can you pause for a second? I'm
Sure.
kind of confused about this. Does the Radiance, like virus or bacteria, whatever that is, spread as you play the game, or is like just one area infected by it?
So what happened when I was playing through Hollow Knight was we went and kind of killed the Dreamers, essentially, unlocking the seal that they had placed on the egg that was containing the Hollow Knight up in Forgotten Crossroads, and every single time we undid a seal, the infection spread even more. I think what happened there was the Hollow Knight was a vessel that was used to contain the Radiance inside of it, and then they put it inside of the Black Egg Temple to keep it away forever.
So you basically opened the Pandora's box.
Basically, because our job was to become the new vessel to contain the Radiance, since the old one was breaking. That's what I think happened.
So you die at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to play the game now.
The irony of the Hollow Knight is that he didn't just seal away the Radiance, he would eternally remember her as well. So, essentially, sealing away the Radiance, but keeping the Radiance alive forever.
I love the freeze frame. It's like there's the little Hollow Knight dude's head and then a buff dude under.
All monsters that bleed orange when you hit them are infected already. I mean most of the enemies. Except for like when we were fighting the mantises, and I guess the ones in Deep Nest weren't really infected.
Oh, I think you even pointed it out at one point. That like they were bleeding differently, the mantises.
Yeah, maybe. Because everything before then was just splurging a bunch of orange blood. But yeah.
Ways were also shut down at some point, and many of the stags eventually died out, but some took more proactive efforts against the infection. The scholars of the Soul Sanctum decided to harness the power of Soul in an attempt to fight the infection. This resulted in the deaths of hundreds
Yeah,
of
the mantises
bugs,
aren't
whose
infected.
souls were sucked out and injected into the bodies of the scholars. Their goal was to achieve some kind of pure focus, which would somehow protect them from plagues of the mind. The scholars' leader, the Soul Master, was driven mad by the sheer power of Soul, and his entire sect failed to avoid infection. But hey, at least they took as many innocent people down with them as they could.
Thank goodness for that, right?
The Mantis tribe, showing a stronger will than the common bug, were able to stave off the infection.
Yeah.
However, one of the 4 Mantis
They were able
lords
to
turned
protect
against
themselves.
his sisters. He and his followers
Ah, yeah. Oh, no. Rest in peace, man. I remember that fight. I had to try it so many times. I subscribe. Yo, what's up, Grim? Your boss fight was epic. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for subscribing.
took in the infection willingly, as it gave them more strength and courage. At some point during all this, the Traitor Lord and his followers were exiled from the Mantis village, eventually taking up residence in the Queen's Gardens. The Traitor Lord's daughter ended up dying at some point. This is the same Mantis that was in a relationship with Zemir, one of the 5 Great Knights.
Oh, and this is where we need to bring the flower to. Probably. Yeah, okay.
But the Mantises rejected their union because of
Time to do the
Zemir's
path pain again.
outsideness. As a gamer, this type of prejudice
Based.
is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick. With the 5 Great Knights completely useless to fight against the infection, the Pale King devised his own scheme. A scheme involving a strange substance known as Void. As I mentioned earlier, the Pale King's White Palace was built in an area
Wait a
called the
minute.
Ancient Basin, but his castle wasn't the only noteworthy thing down there.
Okay, yeah. And in that one time where we kind of went back into memories, we saw the Hollow Knight walk after the Pale King. So we're a creation of the Pale King to stave off the radiance by him using the void to create infinite copies of us, essentially? Maybe? I don't know. Now pay my taxes. Nani? Oh no, it's the IRS. They were disguising themselves as Grim.
At the bottom of the ancient basin was the entrance to a pit, known as the Abyss. Within the Abyss was a lake composed of void. The Pale King realized that this void could be given form, as evidenced by an imprint of such, deep within the Abyss, possibly left there by the ancient civilization that predated Hallownest. The Pale King devised a workshop in his palace, where he placed void in armor shells imbued with soul, creating servants known as King's Molds and Wing Molds. These void
King
creatures
molds
were
and wing
somehow
molds.
imprinted with a desire.
Wait, no, that is the form of the Collector, I think their name was? But the Collector had no soul, right? So that's why when we hit them, they didn't bleed, and we didn't even gain soul from fighting them. I think that's their name. I hated him. His music was just so weird, it was creepy and laughing and jumping.
The Pale King, so that they would serve him. It isn't clear when the Pale King started making these creatures. There is evidence to imply that even common bugs were aware of King's Molds, but the point is, the Pale King turned to the Void in order to create another creature, one that he believed could contain the Radiance and her infection.
The Hollow
He tried
Knight?
to create a pure vessel.
Those
The
look like
Radiance's
eggs.
infection
Wait. What? Kiwi? What? Also, all of the guards in the White Palace are King's Molds with armor. Huh. I should take a better look at them next time they show up on screen. But, yeah, okay. The pure vessel. That's referring to what we are and what the Hollow Knight was, right?
He tried to create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be a creature made of void, designed to lack those features.
Okay, it's making a lot of sense now. Yeah, we can't be infected by it because there's nothing to infect. We're just empty vessel. Okay.
The Pale King believed that by harnessing the void inside a pure vessel, he would be able to stop the infection and keep Hallownest lasting eternal. But his method for creating the so-called pure vessel was incredibly cruel. This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized libido come into play.
What? King Kong-sized libido?
Excuse me, what?
I need to hear that again.
Cruel. This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized libido come into play. These two higher beings engaged in a union of some kind, resulting in the creation of several eggs that were dropped down into the abyss.
How in the world did they make so many of us? Jesus! What were they doing?
There, the void seeped into these eggs, corrupting the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. This act resulted in the creation of the vessels.
Wait, I never saw this in the game, right? I don't think I have. Or maybe it was during that scene.
The vessels are not technically considered to be alive. They are shells created from the Pale King and White Lady that have been filled with a void. Within each vessel is a shade, a completely void being hidden behind the face of the vessel. Vessels are
And when we die, our shade gets released, and that's why we need to go back and absorb it back into our body. Okay. I guess that also explains why our little soul gauge is also broken, because there's kind of like nothing to contain the soul in, since our vessel is broken. I don't know if what I said made any sense, but
I wonder what happens if you like get defeated by one of the infected enemies while your soul is broken. Do you become like an empty husk that doesn't have any control over himself, or like anything of that sort? That would be really.
You know what
cool
happens,
if you had
Kiwi?
that
We
worry.
lose all of our money. That's what happens.
Well,
And our
get good, I
vessel is still
guess.
broken, I think. I think it happened one time during the playthrough.
are also non-gendered. I guess because they're dead or something? I'm not sure if that's how that works, but...
Are they even alive
whatever.
in the first place?
I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. I don't work at
Feminist
ICE
theory
anymore.
reader.
Thousands of vessels were created during this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel. This particular vessel, chosen by the Pale King, was deemed the Hollow Knight, and was taken away to the White Palace. But I want to take a bit of a closer look at this part of the story. There are a number of questions and theories surrounding this
But yeah, like, that's not us. That's the original Hollow Knight. So what are we? Just the backup plan?
moment that I really want to dig into. The big question surrounding this moment is, why was the Hollow Knight chosen over any other vessel?
Yeah.
One common theory is that the Pale King took these vessels back to the White Palace and evaluated them using his giant collection of
Oh my god. Oh god. So, you're telling me he put all of the buzzsaws here just to test their platforming skills? And he was like, yeah, you. You made it through Path of Pain. You are the Hollow Knight. Oh, God.
buzzsaws. This theory is probably the least likely explanation. It kinda exists just to explain the buzzsaws, which is quite the mystery, I'll admit, but doesn't really mesh with the vessels very well. How does being good at Super Meat Boy prove that you are a worthy vessel? And while thinking about logistics in a game about magic bugs is never a good idea, how exactly did the Pale King transfer these thousands of vessels to his palace without characters like the Dung Defender finding out? So this means that the Pale King probably made his decision without taking any of the vessels out of the abyss. So how did the Pale King make his evaluation? I think the best explanation comes from a theory I originally heard from a user named Golden Flower Fan. Basically, the vessels were hatched down at the bottom of the abyss, and the first one to make it to the top was chosen by the Pale King. In a memory of this event, we see vessels falling from above back down into the pit of the abyss. Perhaps these vessels weren't being cast down into the abyss, but fell while trying to escape out of it.
Damn, noobs. Couldn't even
That's
get
so
up from the void.
dark.
Hmm.
Imagine he put them in his path of pain. Jesus Christ. English.
Well, I mean, if they failed this, then they obviously have no way of getting through Path of Pain, because that is infinitely much harder. And I agree, Fortis. The Path of Pain did make me feel hollow inside. If you go back to that stream, you'll slowly see the life sapping out of me. And the end, I was just literally the Hollow Knight. Oh, God.
The lore tablet outside the abyss appears to support this theory. It reads, "Our pure vessel has ascended. Beyond lies only the refuse and regret of its creation. We shall enter that place no longer." This tablet was likely written right after the Hollow Knight was chosen, considering that is when the entrance to the abyss was sealed off. The tablet proclaims that the pure vessel has ascended, or in other words, climbed out of the abyss. And while cut content should never be considered canon, I would just like to point out that an earlier version of this tablet, found in the game's code, was even more explicit about this. It read, "From below, our pure vessel has ascended." But how does making it to the top of the abyss first?
Oh wait, the
prove
little
that the
buddy
Hollow
you
Knight
see at the start of the game is just you from your memories?
This is probably a different vessel. I'm not sure how we fit into the story yet. All I know is that we kill this guy later, at the end of the game, and then we replace him. I don't know if you saw the Hollow Knight fight, but the little guy that we see on screen right now was the final boss that we fight later on.
Oh, I see.
So this means that the Pale King is putting the vessels immediately to work by climbing. Pretty much. If you think about it, it's kinda like, becoming pregnant. Yeah. And then you have to fight all the other
What? Wait a
people
second, I
who want to get into the egg. And so, like, this one is the one that actually made it out of the abyss and into the egg. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
is somehow a perfectly hollow vessel. Well, I think this whole concept might just be a misconception. What if the Hollow Knight wasn't any different from the other vessels? All the vessels were made in the exact same way after all. The idea that the Hollow Knight was somehow more hollow than the other vessels comes from the fact that there were so many vessels created in the first place. If they only needed one, then why create so goddamn many? I mean, this is like Octomom on steroids.
Wait a minute. There is an imposter here.
I just saw him.
What if he just picked it because it had a cool head? Then I guess he has no taste. Well, yeah. We already know this because he put a bunch of buzzsaws in his palace. Who does that? Bruh.
Steroids. Well, these are bugs we're talking about, so it would make sense that multiple offspring would come from one egg. And it might have been a precaution to produce multiple vessels, in hopes that at least one would be able to successfully escape the abyss.
This many?
Now another explanation could be that the Pale King just yeeted other vessels that made it to the top first, after determining that they weren't hollow, which would better explain why so many were created. Ultimately, the exact details aren't super important, but I do find it interesting how many different interpretations can be pulled from this part of the lore. After the Hollow Knight was chosen, the Pale King sealed the doorway to the abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. These actions were not taken lightly by the Pale King or the White Lady. Both participants expressed shame in what they did, but saw no other option to save the kingdom. But the vessels weren't the only poor saps sealed away in the abyss. There's also a lighthouse that was built on top of a naturally formed spire, its light shining down on an ocean of abyss below. Inside was one of the Pale King's royal retainers, who was left in charge of keeping the lighthouse turned on. So this brave soul was willingly sealed in a dark and dangerous tomb for the rest of his life, just so he could not pull a lever. Well, at least he was living with purpose. With the abyss sealed and the Hollow Knight chosen, the Pale King's plan was beginning to come together. the Hollow Knight was raised and trained to prime form, causing it to grow several times its original size. We don't know exactly why this happened, but I guess the Hollow Knight is just a grower and not a shower. We know that the Hollow Knight was trained to use a nail, but why was this even necessary?
Wait, what is this fight? Oh, I wasn't gamer enough to get here. I bet you this is the last Pantheon. This is the
feels like
final fight in the last Pantheon.
Yeah, it feels like Sephiroth of
Yeah,
Hollow Knight.
probably. Pure vessel fight. So... Oh, man. I kind of want to experience it. But also, I'm not good enough to get to fight him in the first place. It would be like... Oh, so that's what you guys were talking about when I was like sitting there making fun of the Hollow Knight for how easy it was to fight at the end of the game. And then you're like, wait until it gets to the pure vessel fight. Okay, yeah. Okay, I understand now.
Zero
One
talking the
possible
truth. It's like it's like when you said that Dark Souls was what game was it? It was another game. You said that it was easy, but you never played it before.
I don't know. I mean, I like to talk big, so it's probably a multiple different
Yeah,
games.
you like to talk. You like to talk footy when you have not done the footy.
Trained to use a nail. But why was this even necessary? One possible explanation is that the Hollow Knight needed to protect itself in case an intruder tried to kill it. You know, like the player. Or perhaps this was important in the process of containing the Radiance. Unfortunately, the details of that are never fully explained. The Hollow Knight
I don't
might
know
have
if it's
somehow
important.
focused the Radiance
Oh, wait.
inside itself.
The fact that Radiance is the villain and I said I like the Radiance says so much about so much.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, is it surprising? Anybody who knows Kiwi, like, if she sees a character and she says that she likes them, even though she has no idea what the story's about, they're either a crazy psychopath or the villain, or a twist villain. They're bad in some way. Kiwi is
That's
just
why I
attracted to
stopped
bad
saying-
people.
That's why I stopped saying that I like certain characters. Ouch.
Although, is the Radiance bad? I guess that good and bad is a matter of perspective. You either die the hero or you live long enough for Kiwi to start liking you. That is such a great quote pun.
That's so mean.
But so true.
But Team Cherry gives us no explanation of how that might have worked. But that still wasn't enough for the Pale King. Additional seals were needed in order to protect the Hollow Knight's physical
Dreamers?
body, while the Radiance was trapped inside of
They
it.
look like
To
aliens.
achieve this, the Pale King sought the help of 3 particular bugs, who would later be known as the Dreamers: Lurien the Watcher, Motomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast. Lurien is definitely the most mysterious of the 3 Dreamers. He lived in the Watcher's Spire in the City of Tears. From there, Lurien watched over the city with his telescope. Lurien was a pretty big fan of the king, so it probably took little convincing for him to lie down for him. Lurien might also be tied to another strange incident that occurred in the City of Tears. Hidden on some of Lurien's lore tablets are images of jars, the same jars that can be found stockpiled in the Tower of Love. This building sits on the outskirts of the city, and is the setting of one
I
of the
thought
most
he was going
bizarre
to say the
bosses.
same jars that the little grubs are put into.
I mean, they are the same jars. I guess we're gonna learn about that here in a moment.
In the game, the Collector. The Collector is a void construct that appears to have been made from the same mold used to create the King's molds.
Lurien the Voyeur. I mean, yeah, he probably wasn't looking at anything inappropriate. He was just looking at the kids playing in the street, you know? The zombies walking around doing their thing.
But the Collector is unique because, well,
Good grief, he's naked!
the Collector stayed in the Tower of
looks
Love with a
beautiful.
noble bug who likely owned the establishment. In the tower, a number of bugs can be found captured in jars, implying that these two were tasked with collecting these creatures. However, the collector somehow became obsessed with grubs, creating a map
Why?
to keep track of grubs it captured in jars, as well as keeping a strange shrine displaying a grub in the style of the Vitruvian Man.
Yeah, what is this? Why?
Eventually, the bug staying with the collector decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died, likely due to overexposure to the void. Despite being locked up in the tower, the collector is still spotted by the hunter at some point, which either means this only happened recently, or the hunter has been farting around in Hallownest for a long ass time. We have no idea what these creatures were trying to do. It's implied that the collector was trying to preserve the creatures of Hallownest, perhaps trying to protect them from the spread of the infection, but we don't know where the collector's obsession with grubs originated, and while Larian does seem connected to all of this, we don't know how involved he was with this operation, or what its end goal exactly was. Motomon the teacher lived in the teacher's archives,
Okay.
a library built atop a lake of acid in the Fog Canyon. The lower half of her body consists of tentacles, making her a popular subject for the thriving Hollow Knight R34 community.
Whoa. Ooh,
Why
I'm
did
gonna
I
need
know
to
he
do
was
some
going to
research.
go there? Like, why did I know he was going to go there?
Also,
The moment I heard
I'm pretty
tentacles,
sure
I
that
just-
one blurred image is just an image of Garfield. I could be wrong,
Yes, it is 100% Garfield.
though.
The archives and the Fog Canyon as a whole are also filled with these strange Metroid knockoffs. These creatures are likely related to Monomon in some way. They could be her live offspring, her test tube babies, or possibly even her
Test
shit.
tube babies.
Motomon uses
Oh.
futuristic cathode ray tube things to store information about Hallownest. Several terminals in the teacher's
That's
archive
one
go
way
into
to keep
detail
info.
about the Pale King's plan to defeat the Radiants, indicating
couldn't
that
make
Motomon had intimate knowledge of
heads or
what she was
tails of
taking
these, though.
part in. Finally, the Pale
I mean,
King
they
sought
are
the
in
help
the
of
in-
Hera the Beast.
They are in the game's language. Like the in-game's language. So of course you could. Zero.
Queen of Deep Nest.
Yeah, guess so.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, relations between Hallownest and Deep Nest were kinda not great.
Yeah.
Unlike the other two dreamers, Hera needed to be convinced in order to help the Pale King. Hera would eventually agree to become a dreamer, in exchange for a child. The Pale King agreed, and the two
Exchange for a
engaged in a
child?
dalliance, which is a fancy way of saying they totally boned. The White Lady was
Yeah.
okay with this arrangement. In fact,
I mean-
she might have been watching from the closet.
She's kind of a freak. Oh my god. Oh damn. The white lady. Well, I didn't expect her to. Well, you can't judge a book by its cover. It was longer lasting than Soak Pages. That is true. It is a very interesting way of keeping info. And I mean, it lasted up until we went into the lab and were able to read it. So yeah, good. Good on her.
The motive behind Hera's request is never elaborated on, but it appears as though the King of Deep Nest was dead at this point. Hera was a common bug, so perhaps she desired the Pale King's pale seed so that her child could be of high birth. The
Pale
bargain
seed.
between Hera and the Pale King resulted in the birth of Hornet. She became known as the Genetic Child, because unlike the Pale King's other children, Hornet was not hollowed out by the Abyss.
But there is an imposter among us.
Hera and Hornet spent little time together, as Hera had to make good on her end of the bargain. And so the three dreamers were put to rest.
So
Through their
yeah, she is our
actions, a seal
sibling.
was placed
Half
over the
sibling.
black egg, prohibiting
Kinda.
entrance into the chamber.
All
These
of the
dreamers also had their own protection.
now all of the like shipping fan art I saw of those two kind of makes me feel really nasty.
Oh no.
Egg, prohibiting entrance into the chamber. These dreamers also had their own protection. At the base of Lurian's spire, the Watcher Knights guarded access to their master's body. Motomon's
Oh, look
body
at that
was
dude's
protected by a
nose.
giant jellyfish named Umu. On top of this, Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself. So she basically is double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen in-game. We don't
Yeah,
know where this
we
creature
don't know
is
what that
hiding,
was.
but whoever it is, they really suck at their job. Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's den is an incomplete seal of binding, woven from silk. This design prominently features the Hollow Knight's head, and can be found in the White Palace, as well as blocking the exit during the Hollow Knight fight. Silk spools created by the Weavers can be found in the Stag Station in Deep Nest, as well as the Stag Station next to the White Palace. These spools can also be found in the Pale King's workshop. We know that the Weavers were closely tied to Hera and Hornet, so their actions might have been a part of the deal between the Pale King and Hera. Once the Hollow Knight was ready, the Radiance was somehow channeled into the vessel, which was then placed inside of a giant black egg located in the Forgotten Crossroads. This egg was built to sustain the Hollow Knight, and itself appears to be fashioned from void. The Hollow Knight was chained up, and the entrance to the black egg was locked behind a powerful seal created by the three Dreamers. Initially, this convoluted plan actually worked, and the infection was successfully contained. Memorials to the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers were erected in the City of Tears and the Resting Grounds. But this is the part of the story where things get a little bit hazy. By the time these statues were constructed, citizens had taken to writing on parchment woven from spider silk, which was all destroyed when water started pouring down onto the city. We don't know how long the Hollow Knight was able to completely contain the infection. Bugs from Dirtmouth used to go to the Temple of the Black Egg to pray, saying they felt at peace within the walls. But after a while, they stopped going, perhaps indicating that the infection was beginning to leak out again. The infectious air continued to seep through Halnest for years, eventually even reaching the deepest parts of the kingdom.
His brains.
As it turns out,
yeah, he has none. Unfortunate.
The Pale King's pure vessel wasn't quite so pure after all. The Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what that idea was, it does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow Knight and the Pale King sharing a moment. The Hollow Knight might have developed a parental bond to the Pale King, and who could blame it? The Pale King is a pretty great dad after all. You know, if you ignore the infanticide and everything. Remember those smug mushroom dickheads? Well, it turns out their trust in the Pale King was a complete mistake. That shared mind isn't looking too good now, is it? In the fungal core, the corpse of a giant mushroom lies dormant. Its final thoughts were, "Pale worm, what good to see a demise unavoidable?" This could imply that the Pale King always knew that his kingdom was doomed. All he could do was delay the inevitable.
I mean, speaking on that, aren't all kingdoms eventually doomed? Doesn't every good thing end someday? I guess there were all those writings that are like a kingdom eternal or whatever, but like, yeah, realistically speaking, I don't think he would have expected that. Eat death of the universe. Well, I mean that is the end of everything, right? So.
This is likely the moment when Halnest, as it once was, entirely collapsed. The Hollow Knight had not completely stopped the infection, and while it may have taken a while, Halnest was eventually brought low. It's at this point that characters and areas begin to resemble as we know them in-game. When it became...
Okay. So, from my understanding, the vessels are supposed to be completely hollow, meaning that they have literally no soul, no thought, no consciousness, I guess. And the problem here was that the Hollow Knight gained a little bit of a sense of self, and maybe had like their own thoughts, and which is why, when they sealed away the Radiance, it turns out that the Radiance then became immortal because the Hollow Knight remembered the Radiance, right? No mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. Yeah. So it would have been the perfect vessel to keep away the Radiance. But, yeah, we kind of messed up on that plan. Okay. I'm starting to see where it's all leading to.
I see it. It's that the king knew that everybody was gonna die, so he did whatever he wanted, and he knew that nobody was going to be able to file a complaint because he would be dead and everybody else would be dead. So it's a perfect economy. Everybody's happy.
I mean, how did the Pale King die? Of old age? He was just kind of sitting on his throne when we found him.
I mean,
What
he
was it?
went from a big, huge dude to a freaking twink.
No, Kiwi.
He must have died of old age.
He wasn't a big, huge dude. He was always a tiny little guy, but he always built statues of him being very big. Because he wasn't compensating for anything or anything like that, you know?
He had a very fragile ego.
The dude put buzzsaws in his palace in order to make sure that nobody ever made it up to him so they would see him being a tiny little ass pale king.
He's like the protagonist of Eminence in Shadow. Yeah.
Damn. Once upon a time, he was an enormous worm, though. Yeah, that is true. Maybe he wanted to return to that form, or at least, you know, be remembered as being big. But no, unfortunate. Short king.
Wouldn't
all the
he
way.
make himself more worm-like though if he wanted to return like that and not buff?
Maybe he had a different image for himself. Maybe he didn't enjoy being a worm. Who knows, Kiwi?
Clear that the Hollow Knight was not able to contain the
I mean,
radiance,
he does.
the Pale King resorted to his final
True.
plan.
And he's dead.
He fucked off, hiding himself,
That is a great plan.
White Palace, and his Pale Court in the dream world. At this point, all of the furniture in the palace was covered under white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also completely covered with thorns and buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world cover their houses with thorns and buzz.
I guess I'm just weird. His
We don't
crown
even
looks the
cover
same
our
as his
furniture.
worm form's mouth. Yeah, I was thinking that, but I wasn't sure if there was a direct connection there. Okay, I see. Yeah, it does look very similar to that. Very smart
I was
design.
thinking this whole reaction that Serbi's crown looks a little bit like the king's crown, and now I have something to tease her with that her
Oh
crown looks like
no.
worm's mouth.
You don't do this? I'm sorry, Banana King. I know it's embarrassing, but I don't go out and buy a bunch of buzzsaws and thorns and put them in my house. Especially when
Why
I was
not?
moving at like I don't remember when I moved. Was it like 2 months ago? Yeah, I didn't do this. Maybe I did it wrong.
But why not? You can make homemade buzzsaws.
Homemade buzzsaws? How do you make
Yeah, you
homemade
have, like,
buzzsaws?
Okay, you have like real five real buzzsaws, right? And then you take a
This
carton.
plan involves having
and
5
you
real
make-
buzzsaws in the first place, so...
You mean you don't have 5 real buzzsaws at home laying
Okay,
down?
whatever,
ready to
Kiwi,
be used?
whatever.
Buzzsaws. The Pale King would eventually pass away while sitting on his throne in the White Palace. There's no confirmation on what killed him, but there are a few things to consider. The throne room is incredibly dark compared to the rest of the palace, and the particle effects and ambient track in this room are identical to that of the Abyss. All
Oh,
of the king's molds surrounding the
Didn't
Pale King
notice
are
that.
dead. The ancient basin itself also has become stained with the presence of void, as it can be seen as high as the rundown elevator shaft leading back to the city. Remember that bug that was sealed away in the Abyss to make sure the lighthouse wasn't turned off?
yeah.
Well, the lighthouse was turned off. I guess that whole living with
No.
purpose thing is a crock of shit after all. It seems as though the Sea of Void itself actually
Poor
convinced this
guy.
bug to betray his king and turn off the lighthouse.
And
Now
so
I
it
know what you're
released the
thinking.
void.
Exactly how conscious is the Void? Is the Void able to think for itself? Can it form strategies?
Or is it
Does
just
it host
chaos?
a podcast? Well, according to
What?
this Chozo statue ripoff, the Void is powerful, but not unified. So while it can thrash around at things that come near it, or call out in unison to turn off a light, it's not a single conscious being. Getting back to the Pale King, one could argue that the Void might have played a role in his ultimate demise, and I've argued that viewpoint in the past, but we have to remember that there isn't enough evidence to know for sure. As an expert lawyer and a good friend of mine, Johnny Cochran, once said, Any evidence that the Void was involved in the Pale King's death is circumstantial. My name is Johnny Cochran. Just above the White Palace, the bugs in the City of Tears weren't faring much better.
I
Even
believe
if we
that.
ignore the fact that the infection was still around, there were other issues that helped lead to the city's downfall. Due to the gates being sealed, some bugs resorted to cannibalism in order to avoid starvation. And there's also that metric fuckton of corpses lining
Shake
the
my
walls of the
head.
Soul Sanctum. When all was said and done, the only citizen left standing is Eternal Emelita, who just laughs her ass off about it like she's a fucking Dark Souls character. The White Lady ends up in a cocoon deep within the Queen's gardens. She decided to place bindings on herself in order to keep her from spreading her seed. She claims that
Oh, yeah. That's the only way to keep her down. Her libido. It's too strong.
this is because of the shame she feels in helping the Pale King create the vessels. But honestly, it's probably just her kink. The White Lady also diminished her power, possibly as a way to keep herself hidden from unwanted visitors. Outside her cocoon, Drya stood guard, protecting her queen from the violent traitor mantises. Drya is eventually killed off by these bugs, which is actually pretty pathetic if you think about it. I mean, we're talking
Damn.
like the Netgear WPN824N N150 wireless router pathetic. Speaking of great knights dying pathetic,
What is mossbag's like comparison with wireless routers gag here? Does he do this in other videos? I don't know what it is, but it's great.
let's move on to Hagemul. Hagemul held the city crest, a key used to open one of the gates to the City of Tears. At some point, Hagemul's armor shell was stolen by a maggot. Now, maggots were generally looked down upon and forced to do menial labor. They were incredibly weak, and basically deserved all of the discrimination they got. But this one maggot decided to turn the tide, so he stole Hagemul's shell so that he could defend his
The
downtrodden
dream fight version of
brothers.
this was intense.
His actions weren't motivated by the infection, but instead was the result of how hierarchical caste systems will always lead to revolution from the working
Yes!
class, and that true
Yes!
freedom can only be achieved
Rise,
blah, blah, blah,
comrades!
capitalism is bad. Subscribe to my Patreon. Ogre
Thank you to all of our channel members and patrons, by the way. Also go and subscribe to Mossbag, too. Spread the love. Communism.
moved to the Royal Waterways
Communism.
and started living in shit, changing his name to Dung Defender. Now, I love wallowing in shit as much as the next guy, but you'd have to really love shit to put up with living with the flukes. The Dung Defender kept an unwavering sense of duty and loyalty to the king, and love for his fellow knights. So much so that he made shit statues of them. How nice.
I don't know how to feel about that. If somebody made a statue of me out of shit, thanks, I guess.
They like how you smell.
I guess. Yeah, cool, dude.
Ogrim acted as the defender of the pipeways, as well as Isma's Grove. A section of the Royal Waterways became filled with acid, and in the middle of it all rests Isma's corpse, which has been overcome by plant life. Isma is likely the one responsible for this acid blight, but we have no idea what happened to her. Hornet's whereabouts during
we
this
don't
time
know
are fairly
Isma's power.
mysterious. We know that she departed Deep Nest and didn't return until the events of the game. At some point, she took to guarding Halnest from intruding warriors, as well as the cast-off shell in the Kingdom's Edge. Despite the Kingdom's woes at large, fortunately this fate did not befall one of the fandom's favorite characters. The Menderbugs continued to fix the broken signs and wayposts of
Yay.
Halnest. From a diary entry, we can see that one Menderbug in particular had found himself on the precipice of a long and loving relationship.
Oh?
Hello again, diary. Not long now until the next Minder Bash for a stealth.
What? What is going on here? Oh, whoa! Can we show this on YouTube? Oh, God.
Types.
It's
We're a
fine. They're not
riotous
holding
bunch.
hands.
Oh, true.
Long now until the next Minder Bash for a stealthy types. We're a riotous bunch when we get together. And Minderberry kept flashing me that smile. It might be time to muster my
Wow.
courage and
What a
act on it.
beautiful smile.
I love my home and my life, but sharing it with another? Why, that'd be the berry on top.
Greenpath also underwent some changes during this time. The Mosskin were waiting for Un's call, which would bring them back into the dream they were originally born from. But for some reason, Un's strength deteriorated. We don't know why this happened exactly. Was it due to the White Lady claiming part of her kingdom? Was it somehow due to the infection? Some Mosskin believe that Un went into hiding, but it appears as though Un is, in fact, calling to her
Still
children.
there.
But many of the Mosskin are unable to hear her call.
Wait, I was about to ask, is that
Instead,
Anne?
many
Because Anne has really luscious mustache.
No. I don't remember. Well. No, I do remember who Un is. Un is the giant green slug that you saw in a few times in the video.
Aw.
Yeah, it lives in a lake that's behind the lake that the guy who we just saw was looking towards.
Mosskin seem to have taken the Radiance's infection into their
Giant
leaves,
snail, yeah.
which might explain why Greenpath became overgrown with vegetation despite Un's deteriorating powers. Mossy vagabonds even openly chose to forsake Un and worship the Radiance. Another tribe to be screwed over by the Radiance is the Hive,
I see.
which fell to the infection after the death of their leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization.
Vespa.
The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees, since the Hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other words,
yeah,
the Hive
pretty
probably
natural.
made out the best in this whole situation. Let's turn our attention back
They were pretty much like under new management at that point.
to the moths. After all, it's their god that keeps killing everybody. Well, the
Right?
moth tribe didn't fare too well, actually, as pretty much the entire tribe died out. The only known survivor is the Seer.
Seer.
Despite the loss of her tribe, the Seer continued to tend to the graves in the resting grounds, while also waiting the arrival of the Wielder, a mysterious being that her tribe has dreamt of for a while. In the Kingdom's Edge, the land became covered in ash molting off of the worm's decomposing corpse. The Colosseum of Fools continued to thrive. The Lord Fool passed away at some point, but nobody really seems to notice or even care. The fools inside the Colosseum were infected, but still seem to have maintained control over themselves. It seems possible that these bugs took in the infection willingly, similar to the Traitor Lord and his followers. This would have given them an edge in combat, similar to using steroids, but without the
That's
whole shrinking
interesting.
testicles thing. However, even the Traitor Lord and his followers went mad, so what makes these fools any more special? As for the Pale King's champion, the Pale Lurker, well, she just went the normal kind of insane. There appears to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen, the door to the Abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels within. But apparently, some vessels didn't get the memo. Vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the Ancient Basin, one in Greenpath, and several trapped in Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the Abyss is the player character, the Knight. The exact details on how the vessels escaped the Abyss is unclear. There are indications that they might have slipped into Deep Nest through some old passageway, given void influences in part of the area, and all the
They
corpses
look
found
naughty.
in Nosk's lair.
What?
They look like dildos.
Oh my god.
And void influences in part of the area, and all the corpses found in Nosk's lair. At some point, all entrances to Hollownest were closed off, with the old well-endured mouth being the only way to sneak back in. Despite this, several people have wormed their way into the kingdom, with few ever returning. Characters like Relic Seeker Lem seemed content to just pillage artifacts from the ruined kingdom, but other bugs seemed interested in something greater. In the Howling Cliffs rests the corpse of a member of the Grim Troop. The task of this bug appears to have been to seek out Hallownest, so that the troop might be summoned to the kingdom in the future. The Grim Troop are basically a group of bugs that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart. The troop keeps the heart
Nightmare
alive by
Heart.
feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms. This process also involves sacrificing the troop master to his own child because, hey, look at this cool ass boss battle.
Okay, I see. Ah, okay. They feed off of fallen kingdoms. So that's why they show up. And I guess that the place in the Howling Cliffs where we light the fire is kind of what signals them that the kingdom has fallen or whatever. But the bug that was supposed to do that died, and we just did it in their stead, is what I'm guessing.
Another important group that traveled to Hallownest are the God Seekers. After being abandoned by their old gods, the gods of thunder and the gods of rain, these bugs left their home in the land of storms, seeking out a new god to worship. The god.
Is it possible to get there? I think that's like on the edge of Howling Cliffs. There's supposed to be a huge like gust of wind that blows you back.
God Seekers look to gods to save them from their own silent mind. While traveling through the wastelands, the God Seekers constructed devices called God Tuners, which helped them seek out new gods. Through this device, they were able to detect the lingering power of the Pale King and find their way to Hallownest. When they arrived, however, the God Seeker was forced into hibernation. She was encased in a strange sarcophagus-like cocoon, which was itself chained up with a lock. It's not clear how this forced hibernation worked, seeing as the cocoon appears to have been made by the God Seeker herself. As for who put the cocoon in chains, I think the most likely candidate is the Dung Defender, considering how the God Seeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area.
Seems like worms had a whole ecosystem of bugs living off their dead civilizations. It's very interesting. Seeing how everything kind of blends together. Everything feeds off something else. And it creates this oddly balanced ecosystem that surrounds several different facets of not just like, you know, the environment and everything, but also, you know, civilization itself.
Defender, considering how the God Seeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area the Dung Defender has tasked himself with protecting. This was the general picture of Hallownest after the Hollow Knight was sealed inside the Temple of the Black Egg. The kingdom was stuck in a kind of stasis, with the Pale King civilization destroyed, and the Radiance unable to break free from her chains. The Pale King was rebelling against nature, trying to keep his work standing indefinitely. The stasis over Hallownest held for an age. How long is that exactly? Well, we have no idea. As I'm sure you've noticed, there really isn't a timeline for anything that happens in this game. We also have no idea how long any of these bugs can actually live. Elderbug wasn't around to see the stagways open, but we know several other characters were, implying that Elderbug is probably one of the youngest characters in the whole game. But this stasis over Hallownest wasn't going to last forever. At some point, the Radiance erupted out of the Hollow
Maybe he's just, like, not an actual Elderbug, maybe he's just a young bug, but he just likes to act like he is old, so people take him seriously. He's
maybe
like
Elderbug
20.
is just a type of bug. You're born an Elderbug. There.
Cracking its shell and releasing a loud and powerful roar. The amount of infection leaking out of the Hollow Knight became even greater.
Bug.
The many corpses that lined the roads and cities of the kingdom sprang to life with the amplified power of the infection. This strengthened infection prompted the departure of the Weavers back to their old home. Now this old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong takes place. But the amount of knowledge we have about Silksong right now is pathetic, so I'm not saying that's confirmed or anything. This is also
look at that lethal acrobatic action
back in Hallownest. His memory of Motomon appears to have been clouded due to his time outside of Hallownest. These events are depicted in the Quirrell prequel comic, which also shows an image of the Hollow Knight with a pre-cracked shell. This could mean that Quirrell's arrival happens roughly the same time the Hollow Knight's shell cracks. At around the same time Quirrell arrives in Hallownest, we also see the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight.
Man, I remember when we first saw this cutscene. I remember when I thought that if I had played the game for too long during that first stream, we'd finish the game in that one stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at us now. We finally finished the game after a very, very long stream that lasted us several months.
The Knight was one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss. Somehow the Knight ended up venturing beyond Hallownest and into the wilds beyond. It's implied that the Knight was called to Hallownest by either the sealed Hollow Knight or the Radiance within. Regardless, once the Knight shows up and yeets itself off this cliff, the actual game of Hollow Knight finally begins. Now, there's a lot of details we could get into. Hallownest is full of NPCs and bosses, each with their own stories to tell. But to be honest, I don't think we need to go through all of them, since their stories are relatively straightforward. For example, let's look at the brooding Moloch. So why is the brooding Moloch brooding? Because all its friends are dead. And there you go. That's the lore for the brooding Moloch. Also,
good. He doesn't deserve to have friends. Such an annoying boss.
it's the only character in the game with a visible asshole. Now, did you really need me to
I didn't need to know that, mossbag.
explain that to you? Probably not. So instead, I'm just going to talk about the interactions relating to Hollow Knight's main story.
What is...
The Knight is eventually noticed by Hornet, who lures it deep into Greenpath. There, Hornet attempts to kill the Knight, claiming that she knows what it would try to do. At this point, Hornet views the Knight as being too weak. After the fight, Hornet can be found in the City of Tears, next to the statue of the Hollow Knight. Hornet mentions that the Knight has gained a resilience, due to the time it spent in the void beyond Hallownest. This could be referring to the fact that some of those who leave Hallownest lose their memories, meaning the Knight would have no memories of its own tragic conception. Hornet tells the Knight that if it seeks to continue the stasis that keeps Hallownest standing, it must seek the Graven Ash, which is referring to the Kingdom's Edge. At this moment, Hornet sees the Knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. Basically, the Knight could break the seals that keep the Hollow Knight locked away, defeat the Hollow Knight, and contain the infection itself. It's at this point that I should mention that Hollow Knight actually has 5 different endings, because of course it would. I'm going to be explaining each of these endings in this video, as they each give us a different glimpse into the mechanics of Hollow Knight's world. Now, to get the easiest ending to Hollow Knight, Hornet's instructions to go to the Kingdom's Edge can be ignored completely. If the Knight stumbles upon the resting grounds, the 3 dreamers will appear and cast the Knight into the Dream Realm. There, Seer will come to the Knight's rescue and grant it the Dream Nail, a special blade that can tear the veil between the real world and the dream world. With the Dream Nail, the Knight can venture to the resting places of the 3 dreamers, curb stomp their asses, and unlock the entrance to the Black Egg. Inside the egg, the Knight finds the Hollow Knight chained up, silently watching.
Release him and then kill him and then replace him.
Once the chains are broken, the Hollow Knight screams with that familiar Radiance roar and pursues the Knight. As the fight progresses, the Hollow Knight starts trying to kill itself, Quirrell style. But then the Radiance starts using the Hollow Knight's body to perform her own attacks. Once defeated, the Hollow Knight begins to spew infection all over the place. The Knight can then focus the infection into itself. This results in the first ending of the game, called Hollow Knight. In this ending, the Knight usurps the Hollow Knight, prolonging the stasis over Hallownest. New chains and bindings appear out of fuck if I know, and contain the Knight, and a new seal is placed over the entrance to the Black Egg. Now there is one giant question looming over this ending. Can the Knight actually contain the infection indefinitely?
But like,
or
now
will the
what,
Radiant still
right?
manage to break free one day?
Somebody else comes to replace
Before we
us?
answer this question, let's look at some of the other events that can transpire while playing the game. If the player chooses to go to Kingdom's Edge, Hornet will challenge the Knight one last time, as a final test of strength. After her defeat, Hornet allows the Knight to access the cast-off shell, where the Pale King was originally hatched. By interacting with this egg, the Knight's shell is marked with the King's brand, technically making the Knight the new ruler of Hallownest. With the King's brand, the Knight can now open the entrance to the Abyss and discover the place of its birth. When leaving the Abyss, the Knight can encounter Hornet again, where for the first time, Hornet suggests that there are actually 2 outcomes the Knight can enact. She tells the Knight that it can either prolong Hallownest's stasis, or face the heart of the Kingdom's infection. Within the Knight, Hornet sees a chance for change. Instead of just replacing the Hollow Knight, Hornet believes that it may be possible to get rid of the infection completely by using the void inside
by defeating
of the Knight.
Radiance.
After visiting the Abyss and obtaining the Shade Cloak, the Knight is capable of reaching the White Lady, hidden away in the Queen's Gardens. The White Lady tells the Knight that she has been awaiting a vessel to accept a gift, that gift being 1/2 of a charm called the King Soul, which she claims will give the Knight more power. The White Lady goes on to explain that she can feel the weakening of the Hollow Knight within her roots. She tells the Knight that it is free of the blemishes that made the Hollow Knight a flawed vessel. From this dialogue, it is implied that the Knight truly is a pure vessel, capable of containing the Radiance successfully.
So, we are literally the most head empty of them all.
I mean,
I
that's
don't-
probably why you don't speak.
I don't know how I feel about that. But I guess, yeah, that it does make sense since we were kind of like, yeah, we're a vessel, we escaped the abyss, but we didn't have any connection to anybody. And so we never gained that, the same thing that the original Hollow Knight did with his connection to the Pale King. That's true, your channel's a testament to that. Thank you, Pun.
You are so
Thank you.
kind. Pun, you are so like aggressive today. What happened?
Man.
You are roasting us like a chicken today.
Oh, that's a good one, though. That was good.
But it's not quite that simple, so we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into this. Basically, we're gonna need to answer a simple question. What exactly does it mean to be a Hollow Knight? Despite the White Lady's words, we have a number of instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the knight has a will, and maybe even
Woke up and chose violence. Look, it's okay.
Against you.
I mean, hey. I guess we've just already reached that point in our relationship, you know? We just know exactly what the other's thinking, and, like, you know, we can commit acts of violence against each other, right, Pun? Right? Yeah.
That sounds like you're asking him for permission to hit him.
Hey, consent. Consensual violence. It's important, you know? Anyways.
instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the knight has a will, and maybe even a mind. But from the Pale King's dialogue when describing the Hollow Knight,
No
it is
will to
stated that a
break.
pure vessel has no mind
Yeah.
or will. So is the White Lady wrong? Or maybe even lying? Her eyes have been clouded by time, and she can be tricked into thinking that Ogrim is in the room when the knight is wearing the Defender's Crest charm. She also thinks that Drea is still
Oh.
alive, which,
Yeah, he's literally dead at the
so
front
maybe
door.
the White Lady is just senile. My problem with that theory is that the White Lady states that the vessels stand out to her clearly in a
Maybe
misted
she's just
world,
demented.
due to them being her spawn. She also questions whether or not the knight sought her aid, which would imply that the knight must have some kind of will. So for whatever reason, the White Lady thinks the knight is still capable of containing the radiance, even if it's still able to make decisions. After all, the Hollow Knight was considered pure, but they still taught it how to wield a fucking sword. I mean, if the knight were truly and completely hollow in a literal sense, it probably shouldn't even be able to walk, or draw a map, or open a goddamn bank account. In short, this whole concept of being hollow is so abstract and hard to define, I don't really feel comfortable giving a solid answer on whether or not the knight is or isn't truly hollow. And I think the game leaves room open for other interpretations.
I mean,
Of course, the
maybe,
White...
maybe it is that the knight is hollow. It's just that we're the player, the person controlling him is the infection that's telling him what to do and what not to do. He's just a vessel, and we're the actual bug controlling him.
Yeah, I mean, not the infection, because the very reason why he's hollow is because he can't be infected. But yeah, I was thinking of it in that way as well. That we're the ones who have the mind and the consciousness to do things, but the body that we're controlling, the Hollow Knight does not. After the video, ask me about the bank. Oh, what is this? Oh, alright, Bun, I will remember that. On stream or off stream?
I'm scared. I'm
White Lady's gift
terrified.
is useless without the other half of the King's Soul. In order to reach it, however, the knight must travel to the White Palace, locked inside the body of a King's Mold. In order to bypass the seal, the knight must use a fully awakened Dream Nail. It can do this by bringing 1800 essence to the seer, allowing her to sharpen the weapon's blade. If the knight does this, the seer remarks that the knight truly is the wielder that her tribe has been dreaming of. There's no explicit reason why the Moth tribe was dreaming about this supposed wielder so much, but it seems like they believe the wielder would wash away the crimes the Moth tribe committed by turning their backs on the Radiance. The seer seems to know that the knight might kill the Radiance, and she seems accepting of it, ready for her and her tribe to disappear and be forgotten forever. With the awoken Dream Nail in hand, The knight can travel to the Pale King's refuge and locate the other half of the King's Soul charm. When equipped, the King's Soul provides a never-ending supply of soul, making it almost useful if it weren't for the insanely high cost of the charm.
Right?
And the painfully slow rate at which it increases. And the fact that the charm will get replaced in about 5 minutes after you get it.
I know,
The King's Soul
right?
charm itself symbolizes the union between two higher beings. To me, this implies that the King's Soul is a representation of a vessel, which also was created by the union of two higher beings.
Wow.
With the King's Soul in their inventory, the knight now gains access to an area in the abyss called the Birthplace. In this massive pile of vessel shells, the knight can find a giant egg. Dream nailing the egg allows the knight to access its own memory when it was cast down into the abyss. From viewing that memory, the King's Soul charm is replaced with the Void Heart charm. The recollection of this event allows the knight to come to terms with the void inside itself. Once the knight has the Void Heart, the shades in the abyss no longer attack.
They don't
it,
attack,
and that
yeah.
strange creature that gives the knight the Shade Cloak calls it the Lord of Shades.
Oh.
In other words, the knight has now bound the once fragmented void under its own will, allowing it to control the void in a powerful new way. With the union of the void, the Pale King, and the White Lady, the knight has gained a strength before unseen. It is with this charm that 2 additional endings become unlocked. Hornet will now be standing outside of the Black Egg, offering to help the knight should the opportunity arrive. Midway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, Hornet
She
rushes
tells
into
us to
battle,
get good.
subduing the Hollow Knight and piercing its shell. It's at this point that the knight is given the perfect opportunity to enter into the mind of its sibling, fighting the source of the infection head on, and finally putting an end to the Radiance's tyranny. Or it can just stand there and let Hornet get knocked unconscious. If the knight finishes off the Hollow Knight as usual, the sealed sibling ending occurs. Basically, it's the same as the Hollow Knight ending, but now
But
Hornet is
Hornet's
in the
there.
room too,
Yeah.
and her face appears on the door of the Black Egg. It's not clear what exactly this means for Hallownest. This might imply that Hornet is now a dreamer, but she's inside the temple, meaning that no one can actually get in there to kill her should the knight ever start leaking infection. At the
So, it's impossible to break the seal, but also, if the seal if it leaks out anyways, then it's the same results. We just gotta replace it with a new shell that would maybe last a few 100 years, and then we'll have to do the same thing over again. Okay.
the same time, Hornet mentions that the bindings of the Black Egg would drain her, so she's probably just going to die anyway, right?
Yeah.
Generally, people consider this to be one of the worst endings, but it's worth pointing out that Team Cherry doesn't support any one ending as being the true ending. Each ending is canonical in its own right, and honestly, this ending isn't the worst. At least the Knight and Hornet will get to spend some quality time together. If the Knight does dream of the Hollow Knight, it will be taken to an arena where it can finally fight the Radiance head
this
on.
fight.
But the Knight isn't alone, as the other shades from the Abyss will appear in order to help corner the Radiance. Eventually the Radiance gets trapped in the tendrils of the Void. The Knight bitch slaps her a couple times, and then the Radiance is consumed into the darkness. The Black Egg then appears to turn to shadows and the Void seeps down into the ground. Hornet awakens to find the Knight's broken shell lying on the floor. We get one final shot of the shades in the Abyss going to rest, and the game is over. This ending is called the Dream No More ending. The Radiance is gone, and Hallownest is finally free from her infection. Now I think it's fair to ask a few questions about how the Dream No More ending comes about. When the Hollow Knight was initially chosen to become the pure vessel, the Abyss was sealed up, and the rest of the vessels were left to rot away. But somehow, vessels ended up outside of the Abyss, and then one of those vessels was used to replace the Hollow Knight. Exactly how much of this operation was planned, if at all? The White Lady was waiting for a vessel. Did she have any communication with Hornet? Hornet was guarding the King's Brand, the only way for a vessel to enter the Abyss. How did she know it was necessary to guard the King's Brand from weaker vessels? Hell, if the vessels did escape the Abyss by themselves, wouldn't it be pointless to guard the King's Brand?
Huh. It's like the entire game was basically a quality check for the vessel. Like, is this vessel good enough to actually subdue the Radiance?
I mean, you defeated Zod.
Yeah, true. Therefore, we are good enough
We
to
are
defeat
truly
anything.
good enough. But
Well-
the final boss.
Yeah, we were not good enough to beat our big bro.
You were not good enough to beat your Ni-chan.
I consider it the true ending. Like, out of all the other endings, I feel like it's the more impactful ending, right? It feels like an end to this curse, I guess you could call it, that was placed upon Hallownest. And it's probably what leads into Silk Song, right? Because, like, how else would Hornet survive otherwise? Zod is the greatest knight in the history of ever. He can never be defeated. You're right about that one, Pun. My bad. We probably
was just our
dreamed that we defeated
imagination.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the, what is it called? The imagination training that a lot of dancers and sport people do. Or you just imagine you playing the game, yeah. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, that.
Since the vessels could just creep back into the abyss the same way? I'm not going to provide any good answers to these questions, because God forbid I answer anything in this entire video. But I do want to point out that no plans to actually produce the Dream No More ending are explicitly stated in-game. So we can only speculate as to whether or not the White Lady or Hornet, or maybe even the Pale King, knew that they could defeat the Radiants by creating a Lord of Shades like the Knight. Regardless, the next two endings were definitely not planned. In fact, the last two endings that were added in the Godmaster update almost feel out of place.
Oh, okay. These are the ones that I'm not good enough to get. Let's see them.
The Godseekers basically hijack everything to the point where you don't even have to enter the Temple of the Black Egg to beat the game. That's like beating Mario Bros without ever seeing Bowser. But on the other hand, the
That's a
Godmaster
weird-looking
endings
Bowser.
basically reinforce that Hallownest does not exist in a vacuum, which can help the world of Hollow Knight feel more real. Because what
Dr.
else is
Eggman
reality
is
but just a
Bowser.
bunch of random chaotic stuff happening all the time? If the Knight finds the Godseeker in the Junk Pit, it will be able to enter her mind and refight all the bosses in the game. This is part of the
What fun.
Godseeker's ritual. They basically attune to the resonance of gods through ritual combat. This allows them to ascend their minds higher, and eventually, through the use of godly focus, achieve communication with the god sleeping in Hallownest's heart, the Radiance. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty convoluted little religious practice they have going on here. What's next? Are they going to start measuring the Knight's Theon levels? It's pretty complicated, but the point is, these Godseekers have some serious capabilities to fuck things up in Hallownest, as we're about to see. As the Knight makes it further and further through the four Pantheons, the Godseekers get closer and closer to making
Four
contact with the
Pantheons.
Radiance, locked away inside the Hollow Knight. At the end of the fourth Pantheon, the Radiance makes herself aware in this strange reunion cutscene between the vessels.
Oh, okay. This is from the fourth Pantheon. Yeah, obviously I didn't make it there, so I didn't see this. Okay.
She isn't the only one to make an appearance. The Void itself appears to go on the attack, rising up
Thanks
to
for the
meet the
hydrate, Ito.
Radiance's call. It's at this point that the final challenge, the Pantheon of Hallownest, becomes available. The Godseeker finally acknowledges the Knight as being more than just a simple cringer, and they begin to watch the Knight more intently. After defeating like a bazillion bosses in the final Pantheon, the Knight finally comes face to face with the Absolute Radiance, a stronger, more enhanced version of the game's final boss.
There's a stronger version of the Radiance? I thought the Pure Vessel was the final one. But no.
Skill issue.
Finally, the stage is set. After roughly 40 minutes of intense agony and tedious boss battles, the Knight has finally reached the ultimate enemy responsible for the destruction of Hallownest. Truly, this will be a battle for the ages. But first, let's check in on our old pal Menderbug.
Oh, thank God.
As it turns out, he's still alive when the Knight arrives in Hallownest, and he's still fulfilling his duty after all this time. Let's take one last look at his diary.
Did he get a girlfriend?
My lovely diary. Someone's gone and broke my favorite sign. Right there.
No!
At the top of the crossroads. Keeps happening, too. But you know, I just can't get mad about it. I should be thanking them, really. More chances to fix that beautiful, complex sign.
I recognize
And I've
that
stocked
voice.
up on spare parts, so I've no fear it'll ever stay broken for long.
Unfortunately, the only way to ever read the Menderbug's diary is to kill him. in cold blood. I'm not sure why Team Cherry thought this was necessary, but the general consensus
It's Vati? Oh, of course it's Vati.
on Reddit is that
You
they're
recognize him from
bloodthirsty
Maxwell's
warmongers,
video.
so it checks out. But at least Menderbug's last moments will be spent fixing one of his favorite signs in the Forgotten Crossroads. It's comforting to think that his final seconds of consciousness were spent in total bliss, before we sent him hurtling into the infinite chasm that is Oblivion. Well anyways, the alternate fight between the Knight and the Radiants plays out differently than in the vanilla ending. This time around, the Knight is not accompanied by any shades. Instead, after defeating the Radiants, the Knight seems to transform into this monstrosity.
What is...
Now
Whoa!
this creature goes by many names. The God of Gods, the Lord Shade, the Devourer, the Void Entity. But I don't really like any of those, so I will just call him Bill. Bill proceeds to completely annihilate the Radiants in spectacular fashion. We are then treated to the Embrace the Void ending. Bill comes back down from the sky, dropping into the rest of Godhome. The Godseeker starts to get pulled into Bill by Void tendrils. We then cut to the Godseeker in the junk pit. Void starts leaking out of her eyes, and it appears as though Bill is making an escape back into the real world, which is probably a bad thing? Finally, we see Hornet standing outside of the Black Egg as the infection begins to disappear from nearby vines. Hornet hears footsteps coming from inside the Black Egg as the Hollow Knight reveals itself to her and the two prepare for combat. So from this cutscene we can see that the Radiance's death in Godhome actually did kill her for real, meaning that the infection over Hallownest is now gone. This means the seals inside of the Black Egg probably wore off, allowing the Hollow Knight to escape its prison. In other words, the Embrace of the Void ending is a goddamn cliffhanger, and we have no idea how Team Cherry plans to follow this up. The Hollow Knight is running loose in Hallownest, and the Knight has transformed into a raging void monster that might try to destroy the entire kingdom.
Maybe this
or
one
at
leads
least
into
what's left of
Silksong.
it. What's even more strange about this ending is that the announced sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, doesn't seem to be related to this ending at all. But that's a whole different shit show. Obviously, the biggest mystery surrounding this ending is the
I guess we'll
appearance
find
of
out
Bill. Did
someday.
this creature exist in the void already? Or was it somehow willed into existence by the power of the Godseekers? Did the Knight turn into this thing, or did it just become a part of it? Examining a statue of this creature and other forms of the Knight grant the player a Hunter's Journal entry for an ancient artifact called the Void Idol, which might imply this creature might have been worshipped by the ancient civilization. But again, that's pure speculation. We don't know what this worship of Void exactly looked like. Maybe the Void they worshipped took the form of something more sinister. There is one thing we know about this monster though. It's weak to flowers. Yes, these things. As it turns out, those delicate flowers that Zamir has stockpiled up her ass are actually useful for something. They contain a strange power that even deters the White Lady from touching one. The Godseeker, however, is dumb enough to accept a flower from the Knight. If the player does this, instead of Void being released out into the world, this flower pulls a no you, and the Godseeker and Void disappear into thin air. The flower itself is described as giving off a pale light, which appears to connect it to the pale beings. Like I said before, pale beings appear to be some form of top-tier gods. As of right now, we are only aware of two, the Pale King and the White Lady, but the fact that Zamir brought these pale flowers from a faraway land implies that there are definitely more of them out there. Another small hint of the existence of pale beings are the pale ore items that can be found all over Hallownest. Did these come from the Pale King, or possibly some other pale being? And what exactly are they? Are they poop? In general, the Godmaster ending...
Why is that the first question?
I'm like listening intently, processing everything, and then he goes, "Are they poop?"
That anyone found this ending is amazing to me. From what I can gather, the Hollow Knight community is insane. They just keep on playing this game over and over again, man.
They cray.
I can't imagine getting that delicate flower to anybody. Oh, God. I wonder what the implication here is. Oh, obviously we don't have an answer.
I mean,
but like,
white flower usually either means saying goodbye or purity, or represents purity. Like,
Well-
if you give white roses to somebody, you're telling goodbye to them, and that's why, like, usually white roses are used in funerals and stuff. But a white lily is
Yeah.
a sign of purity.
They purified the darkness within us, and now we've
I mean,
opened
yeah,
the door
the
to
flower
Kingdom
looks-
Hearts.
The flower looks
Hmm.
very much like a lily, so maybe.
Things appear to be doing a lot of setup for future Hollow Knight content. Like I said before, Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't seem to connect to these events on the surface, so we are in a bit of a bind when trying to discuss what these endings actually mean for the greater narrative Team Cherry is building.
Oh, I was about to ask why she has
There's
a
definitely a lot more to
battery,
consider.
but that's probably like string.
Or silk or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you can give Elder Bug a flower and it's very cute. Aww. I just load up the game just to do that again. No. No more.
Consider about what the Pale Beings are and what properties they possess. And we also have plenty of questions surrounding the Void and how bugs have interacted with it in the past. It
Yeah.
almost feels like we're looking through a keyhole, trying to grasp onto the totality of Team Cherry's creation. How powerful are creatures like Bill and the worms? Where did things like the Void even come from to begin with? How much bigger is the world beyond Hallownest? Is Bardoon into butt stuff? But of course, that's the
What?
appeal of a game like
Bardoon is
He has the same dry humor as you, but you would never make such a joke.
I mean, on YouTube, definitely not. But, yeah, maybe he is. I mean, he gets all ticklish every single time you touch his butt, so,
Hollow Knight.
What
Having all of
does
the answers
being
to every
ticklish
question.
when somebody touches your butt have to do with being into butt stuff?
Look, Kiwi, he makes the weirdest noises, so it's not that far-fetched of a theory.
What? Pugs
Just-
make weirdest noises, but they're not
But
into
of
butt
course, that's
stuff.
the appeal of a game like Hollow Knight. Having
Moving
all of
on.
the answers to every question would just ruin the mystery of the world. Plus, if we didn't have questions like this to waste our time on, then what else would we be doing with our lives?
Right?
Go outside?
Yo!
Ugh. And
Ugh!
so this video comes to an end. Now I know the average attention span of a YouTube viewer is 9 minutes, so let me leave you with a few takeaways. 1. Hollow Knight is a game about bugs. I know this may come as a shock, but it's true. Watch the video
Wow.
again, and this time, pay attention. You'll notice right away, I promise. 2. Murdering your own babies might not be such a good idea after all.
Yeah,
This is
probably
obviously
not.
just my interpretation of the game's.
The story of the Pale King reminds me of that Greek mythology story of the father that ate his babies because he was too scared that his own child is going to overtake him. I think he's Zeus's father. I'm not
You
sure.
mean Kronos?
Yeah, Kronos, maybe. I'm
And-
not good with names. You already know that.
I'm not familiar with the mythology, but I believe that's what happened. He ate all the gods, and then, the gods retaliated, and
Not
Yeah,
all
that-
of the gods. He married his sister, and they had children together. And all of the children that she gave birth to, he ate because he was scared that the children are going to overtake.
okay.
And I know this from a Vocaloid song.
Oh my god. Wow. The greatest source of information. Yes.
Yes, it is though.
Anyways.
Lore. Other people might have different views on the subject of murdering babies, and every opinion is valid, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes or anything. 3. Menderbug is fucking dead.
No, no.
Nothing is certain. This video probably has a few flaws in it. Trying to construct a cohesive narrative with the information found in Hollow Knight isn't exactly straightforward. I'm sure
Yeah.
my views will change in the future, and I encourage
The
you to
fact that you
explore
were
the
able to
lore
make this video is
yourself.
already a miracle.
5. And this last point is fairly obvious, but I should mention it anyway. Cory in the House is the best anime.
Yes.
Someone
That
in
meme should
molasses
come
for the
back.
help script. Nice. Yeah! Brace one and everyone else maintaining the Hollow Knight wiki. Okay. Yeah, that looks to be the end of the video. Well. Oh, that was great. This was amazing.
Yeah, it was
Mossbag is
very
great.
fun.
Yeah.
I understood nothing, but it was very fun.
Well, as the one playing the game, this really did fill in quite a few gaps for me. I was like, what does this have to do with that? And But
You still didn't find out about Grub mural, though.
yeah, unfortunately not. That's probably a separate video. I might look into that on my own. But I think the charm of, like, the Hollow Knight lore is the fact that there are still so many mysteries that are left unanswered. And honestly, I don't think they need to all be answered, right? Because that's just how things work in reality, too. There are just some things that work in a way that we will probably never figure out, or at least not in our lifetime. But looking at each of the endings, I wonder which one leads into Silksong. The developer said that each of them are canon, but how would that even work? I don't really know. Maybe we will get some answers in Silksong, but I think we'll mostly get new questions. Yeah, I feel like they're going to continue with that direction of giving us more mysteries that will probably never be solved, and so allowing content creators like mossbag to go in and make their own theories about it. It's always fun to do that. The theory is that Silksong takes place while Hornet is away from Hallownest. Well, one of the theories. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be after the events or before the events of Hallownest. Because we do learn that Hornet was somewhere else in like a different country or whatever before the events of the game happened. And yeah, that would line up with what we see in Silksong. There are still so many things in the game, though, that I really, really want to know of. So I guess all we can really do is just sit here and wait. I hope we get to fight Bill, though. I feel kind of conflicted. Because, like, we went through the entire journey with him. And what we did, we kind of saved Hallownest, but, like, are we really the good guy? We're kind of just a void creature.
You are Bill, and Bill is you. And Bill is good. I like Bill. That tells you a lot.
Oh no. Kiwi likes Bill? Oh god. It's Joe over, my dudes.
It's Joe over.
Bruh, L in the chat. Bill is a villain.
Get build.
I kind of wish I was good enough to get to Absolute Radiance. But I know in my heart of hearts that I am not. That would have been so cool to see, though. It's fine. Hollow Knight is a game that not everybody is good at. You did remove the infection of the Radiance from people, which was forcibly imposed. That is true, but are they now, like, under new management? Are we just something even worse than the infection?
I mean, they die from Void. They literally all die from Void. They cry black tears and then they are dead. I think that tells you that you are, in fact, a really bad manager.
Well, I mean, we did free them before we killed them. So they died free.
You freed them and then forced them under your rule.
Why do you guys always make me play games where it makes me the bad guy? Like, I want to have the choice to become the bad guy. I'm a mad scientist, but I'm trying to save the world, Kiwi. People just misunderstand me.
Cat girls and wolf girls.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a great video. I thank you so much to mossbag for making this, for all of us to learn more about the lore. And without these kind of videos, I don't really think the average viewer would be able to really understand or get into the lore. Daggerfall has 7 incompatible endings that are all canon in Morrowind due to a time paradox. Oh god, of course. That's how we explain things away. Are they gonna do that with Silksong? We'll see. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed our reaction to mossbag's video. If you did, leave a like on the stream so that others can see it as well. And go over to mossbag's video, then leave a like there too. The bank! Oh yes, the bank! What is it about said bank? Shall we do this on stream or after stream? It'll be quick? Okay. Yeah, sure. What do I do? I guess I'll just...
spit it! Spit it!
If you put in 3k or more in the bank... Oh, I mean, that's something we totally could have done. Millibel runs away with your money?
Wait, didn't you put like 12k at the start? In the bank?
No, I had 12k on me.
Oh, okay.
I never put that much in the bank. I think I only put like 300 or 400 in the bank. You can find her in the pleasure house and can knock the money back out of her? That's great.
That's so... No,
but
it's
that
not
would...
great. She steals your money.
Well, I mean, it would be really funny content, at the very least. So you're like, oh yeah, I gotta put all this money in the bank, because like, if I die, all this money goes to waste. And then she just runs away. The bank was a fake front all along. Who would open a bank in the middle of Hallownest that's currently being infected by the Radiance, right? Yeah, that... The whole setup itself is already sus.
I think one of us even said like something similar to that when we saw her. I think one of us even said that it's sus. I think.
But
maybe.
like thinking about it in like the wider scale of things, yeah, who would do that? If you look carefully at the bank sign, it's clearly homemade. That's great. There were a lot of things in this video that I didn't notice while I was playing, but then when he talked about it, I was like, oh wow, that was actually a really important detail. Like the corpse of the guy in the lighthouse down in the abyss, you know, of being connected to the Pale King and all of that, and how that would lead into you knowing that the Pale King and the White Lady were the ones who made all the vessels, and yeah. It's all coming together. Alright, thank you for sharing, Pun. That was really, really fun. Unfortunately, I was too greedy to give the bank any of my money, so we never found out about that. Or maybe I was just dumb. I probably should have put in my 12k.
I would not call it greedy. I would more so call it cautious.
Cautious? It would be cautious of me to put it in the bank, because if I had died twice at any point, I would have lost that 12k.
I mean, for me, I would not even put it in the bank either, because I just don't trust banks.
Wow. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will catch you in the next stream, which will more than likely be Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That'll be fun.
Next stream would be... Wait, what are we streaming on Friday? I forgot. Not Friday.
No, I mean next Tuesday in the rotation slot. That's replacing Hollow Knight. Yes,
well,
Knights of the Old Republic.
Look. You said next stream. Next stream can be tomorrow because you're streaming 100% something tomorrow.
Thank you guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye bye.